You're listening to the Common Fan Podcast, a Husker football podcast for the common fan, by the common fan.
Welcome back to the Common Fan Podcast. I am TJ Burkle, as always, alongside Matty Owens Sr. and Geoff in Lincoln. Make sure to get 25% off at Certified Piedmontese. Go to cpbeef.com and use promo code COMMONFAN, all one word, COMMONFAN. If you go to cpbeef.com, you can get Certified Piedmontese products shipped right to your front door anywhere across all 50 states. That's right. The best beef in the country, Nebraska beef, raised and grazed in the beautiful Sandhills region of the state. You can get it shipped right to your front door. And what's better than 25% off? Use the promo code COMMONFAN, all one word, COMMONFAN, to get that discount. You can also stop by your local Mercado Butcher Shop in Lincoln or Omaha to get all the same cuts as well as some ready-to-eat hot food. So you can't go wrong either way. Go to cpbeef.com or your local Mercado Butcher Shops. Certified Piedmontese, powering the Husker football team and powering the Common Fan Podcast. Also, make sure to check out our brand new website, www.commonfan.co. We went to TS Web Services to build the site for us. Whether you need web development or hosting, they've got you covered. You can trust TS Web Services to take your online presence to the next level. Their team was very responsive and delivered high-quality work. TS Web Services can help improve, redesign, or host your website. Check out tswebservices.com to learn more. Friend of the program, Mitch Sherman, is back with us. In addition to all the great work he does for The Athletic, Mitch is also the host of the Locked On Nebraska podcast, which if you haven't checked it out yet, common fans, you've got to do it. Great, just about daily or definite day, maybe every day content for Husker fans. So for those of you out there who can't get enough and want to feed the addiction, you've got to check out the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch, how are you?
I'm well, guys. How are all of you doing?
Doing great.
We're doing great. Doing great. Is the bye week? I mean, do you get to sleep in a little bit during the bye week or get a little break of any sort at all?
If it was only about work, then yeah. But it seems like everything in life that I've been putting off for the last 10 weeks because it was camp and then it was week one and it's been go, go, go. Fortunately, it's been mostly at Memorial Stadium. So the travel has been limited to the one weekend at Purdue, which I'm fine with travel. It takes a lot out of the schedule, out of the flexibility of the schedule. So no, for me, this week has been kind of about figuring out where everything is around me. Like, oh yeah, I've got those kids over there, and what's going on? There's my wife. It's nice to see you. So, been a lot of that. A little bit of a slower pace on the work stuff, but I will have a full midseason report out at the end of the week, and of course, we had plenty to react to early in the week from that win against Rutgers last Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's jump right into it. So for the second year in a row, the Huskers have their bye week smack dab in the middle of the season. After six of the 12 games, they've got a bye week, and I know they've got a second one this season. But so Nebraska taking a little breather this week. They've got to feel pretty good about themselves. They're 5-1. I know they'd like to have that Illinois game back, and it was there for the taking. But I think you talk to any Husker fan in January or February, they would have been thrilled with 5-1. Defense overall has looked just as good as last year, especially the last couple of games. And then the offense certainly is better than last year. Been a little more inconsistent than what we've seen from the D, but obviously Dylan Raiola has lived up to the hype. They've got a ton more playmakers. What's your kind of general assessment of where the team stands, how they're feeling about themselves, and how they think things are going so far?
I think the way you laid it out, TJ, with the defense leading the way and being consistent, they've had a moment here or there, and there were parts of that Illinois game, the one loss, in particular, where it wasn't up to the standard at all of what Tony White wants. And then the offense being improved, showing some real high ceiling, but the consistency not being there, having a hard time putting together 4 quarters in a game. All of that sounds extremely reasonable with what one might have expected to enter this season. Like that's probably how I would have drawn it up. Like there's gonna be times where you look at this offense and just say, wow. But it's not going to be every time it goes out on the field. And it's going to look at times like there's a freshman playing the quarterback spot. He's looked less often like a freshman, Dylan Raiola has, than I would have thought before the season, especially through these first 6 games. Now he gets a chance, a real important time for him to assess and get feeling good physically. I think the second half he can really up the consistency because he's got the talent, and it's really just a matter of getting everything together out there on the field. I mean, he's seen so much now, been on the road, been at home, seen defenses that played him off and made him throw into coverage. He's seen defenses that have come at him and wanted to be attacking, and so much room, I think, for him to improve. That's one of the things that obviously we'll all be watching. The part that's been hard to predict has been the special teams. That would have been not something I think people saw before the season. That's on the negative side. And on the positive side, the turnovers. Matt Rule talked about it in say at back in July in saying that he wanted this team to make a huge gain, and he threw out a number. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember at the time thinking, yeah, that's probably unlikely. And I think they're going to exceed, or at least they're on pace to exceed even what he laid out as an objective. To think that this team has only turned it over 4 times through 6 games is pretty remarkable. And they're doing a nice job of generating turnovers. I think they can do better at creating turnovers, but +6 through 6 games is just such a huge leap, not only from where Nebraska was a year ago, but from where it's been at historically over the last 2 decades.
And it's reflected in the record. I mean, you can just see it just in that big of a change from year one to year two. Yeah, definitely big difference in how the Huskers have performed over the last year.
Guys, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention at the beginning. I keep forgetting to do this, but I want to mention Common Fan Tailgate, November 2nd. We're trying to remember to bring this up
Cover the important stuff.
The beginning and not the end of these episodes. Common Fan Tailgate, November 2nd, Lot 10. Everyone's invited. Be there. Lots of friends of the program will be there. So sorry for interjecting that. Mitch, we've invoked your name a couple of times on recent episodes because I think the first time you came on with us was around spring ball. And we kind of were talking about what was reasonable for Husker fan expectations. And I think you said probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 wins, get to a bowl game, something along those lines. And we kind of laughed at the time because we said, then in 2025, the expectations will ratchet right back up to playoff contention. But we laughed after the Northern Iowa game in particular because the Huskers were 3-0 and Husker fans were, at least if you go by Twitter, it seemed like Husker fans were just feeling like it wasn't good enough out there.
Not good enough.
Not good enough. So we lasted, 3 games, or we lasted half a season, and suddenly Husker fans are back to it needs to look like UTEP, or it needs to look like the first half against Colorado all the time. But I think by and large, again, considering 7 consecutive losing seasons, year 2 under Matt Rule, the overall improvement, I think, has been, I would say it's been significant. What's your take on that?
Yeah. And I think it has to be judged by more than just the wins and losses. Like, I don't know that I would give you a whole lot different answer if something had happened at the end of the Rutgers game and Nebraska ends up losing that game. I mean, that would have been devastating, I think, in the moment, and it would have been bad for the trajectory of this season, and it would have put into doubt some things that were kind of taken for granted, like Nebraska is going to end its 7-year bowl drought. Taking that for granted. I think we took that for granted going into the season, and you can continue to take it for granted if you'd like, with the need for just one more win in these last 6 games. I think it's going to happen. I think they're going to go well past that number, but if Nebraska had lost last week, there would be some nervous people right now. It wouldn't be as the same kind of feeling in the bye week. But I don't know that I would feel differently about just the overall growth and state of the program. Like I feel like I've gotten away and people who try to look at this objectively have gotten away from the week to week, just everything is great or everything is terrible based on the one last result that we saw. And that can be hard to do sometimes because college football is so emotional and the games have such wild swings and like what happened in the overtime at Illinois. How do you come away from that feeling anything but just terrible about everything related to Nebraska football? But that's, that has to not be the case. Like that was a bad 5 minutes, and a bad 5 minutes surrounded by a good 6 months is okay. That's the direction that they want to go. And it's a bottom line business. You've got to win games. There's a point where that's really all you're going to be judged by. But Matt Rule's coached 18 games. And yeah, I mean, there's a pretty steady like tick up. Yeah, last November, it was rough. It was hard to get over 4 consecutive losses that all felt like they could have been wins. It was hard to get over Illinois. But I think just in general, like the way the program's moving with like some of the measurables that you can find that aren't necessarily in the W or the L column, they're ticking in a positive direction. Sometimes it's one step back to go 2 steps forward, but that's how it is. Like that's not just college football. Like that's kind of sports or life.
Life even, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we have time to do both of these things, but I'd love to go through a couple different categories and have all of us sort of assign some grades from the first half of the season. And then if we have time after that, I'd love to talk through the second half schedule and just see what you guys think about the schedule to come. So first of all, let's start with the offense. What grade would you assign to the offense for the first half of the year? Mitch, you can start.
Okay, put me on the spot. I'll go first. I would give it a B minus. Can we go minuses and pluses
Yeah,
here?
yeah. You can
Please,
add that. You
please.
can add that nuance. Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to do that as well.
Yeah, I would go a B minus. And there were times where it looked like an A minus. There were times where it looked like a solid B. Again, I'm doing what I said I try not to do probably, and having a short memory, remembering the last vision of this offense, and it was pretty rough in the second half against Rutgers. So that probably sways me a little bit. Might have been a B after 5 games, or even after the first half of the sixth game. But hey, it all has to be taken into account. And that was a second half that could have lost Nebraska a game if the defense and the punter hadn't stepped up in the way that they did. So I think it's fair to take them back a notch after that. And I think some teams are going to look at what Greg Schiano, the Rutgers coach, did against Nebraska in that moment. That wasn't all just about coming after him. Like Illinois, when Illinois rattled Raiola at the end, they just sent too much pressure. They sent more pressure than Nebraska was prepared to handle. And that was a good strategy at the time. I think there will be a time soon, if not now, in Raiola's career where he can pick that apart and he can start to find hot reads. Like the best quarterbacks, you can't just blitz them all day. Like that's not great. You got a true freshman 4 games into his career. Okay, try that next year. And that's not what Rutgers did. Rutgers played technically very sound, solid, physical, confusing defense for a young quarterback. So it has to be taken into account, I think, in the overall grade that you give this offense. It's looked really good at times. First half against Colorado, second half against first half against UTEP, second half against Purdue. I'd even say the first half against Rutgers, getting 14 points and doing it pretty methodically. That's more than enough for this team to win 8 or 9 games. So it's been good, but there's a lot of room for improvement.
Got it. Matteo.
I'm going to copy Mitch and go B minus. More so for something we talked about our last pod. Just kind of seemingly the inability to run whenever they want it to, and push people around, line up, and just go head to head and get 3, 4, 5 yards when we need them. Dylan, again, like I'm cutting him some slack for Rutgers. As Mitch just said, and they threw some things at him that he really hadn't seen yet. You had the swirling wind in the stadium. Dylan's better than I thought he would be. So cutting him some slack, but B minus more just simply because the run game isn't as consistent as I think we'd like to see.
Okay. Geoff?
I'm going to go B plus. All right. I'm going to bump it up just a notch just because if I was grading on a curve comparatively to last year, it's a drastic change to what we saw last year. Yeah, there's been a few things I agree with you. Rutgers game, Dylan held onto the ball a little bit too long in a few cases, but they're just so much better at holding onto the ball and not turning it over. Running is kind of an issue, like you said, Owens. So I'll knock them down from an A minus to a B plus for those reasons.
You're Jeff, you're the teacher that everybody wants because they're a little
Exactly
bit
right.
easier
Yeah.
on the grading.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
pass your ass just so you get out of my class and move on.
Well, I'm gonna go B, and I was gonna say the same reason because I was thinking of, we all went to high school together, Mitch. So when you have a student like Jeff, and what you see is they really, really struggle. So sometimes, like when they show some improvement, you give them, a higher grade than
Few
maybe they
extra points.
deserve
Yeah.
Makes
because
them
they
feel
showed
good.
that improvement. Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
thanks, teach.
So I'm not sure. I agree with you guys about some of the inconsistencies and the inability to run the ball, but I think given how horrendous the offense was last year and the way that they attacked that in the offseason and made a bunch of changes and have improved it drastically, I'll give them a B for the offense. All right, let's jump to the fun one for everybody, the defense. Mitch, what do you got?
Yeah, I was thinking about this as you guys were talking about the offense and which direction I wanted to go here. And I'm torn between a couple of grades. I'm going to say A minus. I was thinking about a B plus because I think those guys, if you try to put yourself in their perspective, I don't think Tony White would give this defense an A minus at this point. I really don't. I mean, he's a tough grader, and I think he sees a lot of things that have been left out there. And we all saw the second half against Illinois and the way that Illinois ran the ball, and there were even some moments in the second half against Rutgers where it looked like the same thing was about to happen. It didn't, and they get credit for making a stand at the end. But there's a big assist that comes with the 69-yard punt that happened because of that, and the fact that Nebraska had a 2-touchdown lead going into the fourth quarter allowed them to hold on. The defense needs to get better at that kind of stuff about playing with a lead in the fourth quarter. I think we've seen two games where they've shown some signs that they can get a little bit leaky and that they can fall victim to momentum swings at that time. The best defenses, if the momentum's going one way, they take it, like they capitalize on that moment and they turn it right back the other way. So if something happens bad offensively or something happens on special teams, the specialty of a great defense, like an A defense, is to be able to say, we're going to put an end to that right now. And I don't think I've seen enough of that from Nebraska in these early Big Ten games. Purdue was a good case of that, but Purdue's the worst team in the Big Ten, so I'm kind of discounting it there. We'll see. We're going to find out a lot about this defense next Saturday at Indiana.
For sure. Matteo?
I'm gonna go B plus for the defense. So the highest B, what would that be, like 80? Isn't it like 80 to 89 is a B? They'd
Yeah,
be
89.
they'd
Like
be an 89.
89.9. Yeah.
They'd be an
Yeah.
89. Yeah,
Are
it's
we talking-
highest B plus you can get. It's simply just because to me the inability against Illinois to defend that play action boot that they kept running over and over with success. But I think I can't remember who put this out there. But Rutgers tried to do something similar, and it looked like they've been working on it because Deshaun Singleton just came up and just smacked. It was down. It was Rutgers had a goal to go, and I don't remember what down it was or distance or anything like that. But they were going in to score, and Deshaun just came up like a missile and tackled I think it was running back or tight end. And so it looks like
Third
they
and
were
goal
like,
from
okay.
the 2.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mitch. There's a reason you're the professional here. But no, I think, other than that, I think for the most part, they've been as expected and as advertised. So B plus for the D.
Got it. Geoff?
I would have said B plus, but after watching the second half of the Rutgers game, I'll bump them up to an A minus like Mitch. Just because how many times have we seen that story of a one possession ball game where we can't stop them or we let them? I mean, who amongst us wasn't a little bit nervous when Rutgers scored that touchdown to cut it to 1. And I was one of those people that thought, this is it. They're going to march down the field. We can't get a first down. They're going to get the ball back, score. We're going to go to overtime, and we're going to be right where we were with Illinois. The way that they performed in that second half, specifically, not that goal line stand. I mean, that was stuff of old school Husker legendary defensive plays where they didn't get in the end zone. So just from that game alone, I bump them from a B+ to an A-. It was great.
This is funny because I was going to go A-, and then based on what both Mitch and Matt said, you guys kind of talked me into a B+. And I agree.
Stick with me, Teach.
I agree with the
me,
point
buddy.
that more than anything, that the defense would probably be, its harshest critic. And I do, there was some concern after Northern Iowa about the tackling looking a little bit leaky, and then that really manifested itself. And they really, I think, would say they didn't play very well against Illinois. And so I think we're going to need the D to carry this. Like, if we think we can get a W, go to Bloomington and win, or go to USC and win. If we think we can win some of these coin flip or even harder games on the schedule, we're going to need the D to take it to the next level. I believe they're capable of doing that. But I'll go with B+ for now. All right. Now the not so fun. Sorry, Jeff's giving me a face for those listening on the audio platforms. Now the not so fun one, or maybe it'll just be funny to talk about, special teams. Mitch?
Yeah, I'm giving him a D, just a solid D. And the reason it's not an F is because they've made a few plays.
Yeah.
They stopped a fake field goal against Rutgers. I think the fake punt pass from Buschini was huge in that game to tilt the field. That prevented Rutgers from scoring earlier in the fourth quarter of that game, I think. And then some of the punting has been pretty good. Clearly, the last punt, the special teams, like, in a very sneaky way, did some things to impact the game against Rutgers in a big way. And we sit there and think about the 2 blocked punts, which were disastrous, but it was almost kind of an even game in special teams, even with Rutgers blocking 2 punts, because Nebraska had the fake punt, Nebraska had some big punts, and then stopped the fake field goal to keep points off the board. So that's why they get a D, because they've had a few of those things. But blocked field goals, missed field goals, blocked punts, no explosive plays in returns, and okay coverage. It hasn't been great. Illinois had a big return in Nebraska's one loss of the year that set up a touchdown that I think really turned things in the second half. So for the most part, it's just been downright bad. But there are a few little bright specks of sunshine that give me some hope for the second half.
Got it. Matteo?
I'm going to say D+, simply because I love Brian Buschini. Or Boom Sheeny, as I've heard him. He's been referenced as Boom Sheeny, so he will forever be known as Boom Sheeny to me. I think he's been punting the ball really well the whole season.
Yes, and making lots of tackles
and making too many tackles. So that's part of the D range grade, right? Is like Mitch just said, there's been a couple of returns. Obviously, the field goal unit is terrible. I mean, if they would have made 1 or 2 more field goals, they might be in C range for me. The special teams as a whole, but yeah, I'm going D+.
Okay, Geoff?
I'm gonna go D-, and same thing I would have given them an F. However, the same reason as Matteo is, Buschini doesn't deserve to get an F. I don't have it in my heart to say that they're an F after the way that he took that freaking hit in Rutgers, damn near died on the field, and then got back up and continued to play like he did. And I guess I give it because they're trying, another type thing. Like, I'll give you an extra grade point for giving it a shot. Like, it seems like they held open tryouts for a long snapper. So, I mean, they're trying to fix things. They brought in Brett Maher to work with the kickers. So, I mean, I guess I'll bump it up from an A to a D- because they're giving it their best effort.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with Geoff and say D-. I really, really want to give it an F, simply because for this one, it's like the reverse of what we talked about with the offense, where it's year 2. I guess it wasn't great last year, but I think it's worse than last year. And special teams, in my opinion, is a function of coaching. Like as long like you got to focus on it, you got to coach it. And I give these coaches credit. I know they're trying, but it just should not be this bad in year two. And like Mitch, like you pointed out, every sort of facet of the special teams has been average to downright bad. You could argue it did cost us the Illinois game. It very well may cost us a game in the second half. And we've made this point many times. That's particularly frustrating when we all like the whole freaking video thing put out sponsored by the Huskers is chasing three. They're chasing 3 points. And your margins are, your margin of victory is going to be very small. And special teams, again, even just make it serviceable. It doesn't have, even if it wasn't great, just serviceable. I think, that would be acceptable. And so it really hasn't been acceptable, but you got to give credit to some of the plays that have been made and to Boomshini and all those things. So I will go D- on that front.
Yeah. It's the Jimmies and the Joe. The special teams has been the Jimmies and the Joes. It's not necessarily the X's and the O's this season.
Right.
And I think that's some reason for optimism. A lot of times on offense and defense, I think you kind of are who you are. You can't like switch out your well, you can switch out your quarterback, but that, we know what that leads to. It's hard to switch out your linebackers or, you guys know what I'm saying. It's easy to switch people out on special teams. Like who's going to give the best effort? You need some new gunners. Like they got 130 guys on the roster. Somebody's got to be able to do it right.
Right.
So I do think that there's maybe the bye week can make this happen, but like they got to take a hard look, and they have been, but they need to continue to take a hard look at everybody who's doing everything on special teams. Now the specialists are a different story. You kind of have to stick with them, but everybody else who puts that thing together and kind of creates the energy that unit needs to play with, they're all very interchangeable and replaceable.
Great point, Mitch. Okay, overall, and then we'll move to schedule predictions for the second half. Overall grade for the program, for the team, halfway through, 5-1. I think a large step forward from where they've been. Overall grade, Mitch.
Yeah, so this is this is based on more than the record. This is based. If it was the record, I might have it in the A range, A- range. I'm going B because I look at it to where do I think Nebraska can be in 2024 and where Nebraska is in 2024 with the level that it's playing at. Are they coming close to maximizing their talent? Have they put together 4 full quarters? And no, they haven't. And people should feel very good about the fact that they can do that, still play poorly at times, and be 5-1. If Nebraska was maxing things out and the games looked like they did, then you might give them a higher grade here, but that wouldn't necessarily lend itself to a lot of optimism about the second half. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and because they've been pretty far off from hitting their best so far, I'm giving them a B.
Fair enough, Matteo.
I'm going to say B plus. Each of these games has been so different, and we haven't played a full complete game yet, full 4 quarters, and oftentimes, especially even after the Illinois loss, I find myself like in the moment, like, oh God, here we go again, or even a day later, maybe it's a little bit less, feel a little bit less hurt, I guess we'll say, or depressed. But then like 2 days later, I'm like, you know what? From where we were, like we're in pretty good shape, and feel good about the coaching staff, feel good about the talent on the roster. So I think that what I would like to see in the second half is a full 4-quarter game, and hopefully we can get there. But for now, just based on what I've seen so far through 6 games through half the season, I'm going B plus.
All right, Geoff.
Comparatively, I'm gonna have to go with an A-, simply because if you break it down, we've done what we needed to do, and we've accomplished some things that we haven't been able to do before. We blew the doors off an inferior team with UTEP. We beat down Colorado hard in the first half against a team that was an admirable foe that we were legit worried about. With Northern Iowa, we held them to what, 3 points, I think. With the Illinois game, it's two ranked teams. Yeah, it didn't come out in our favor, but damn it was close. We had a lot of calls that could have gone our way, one way or the other. With Purdue, we bounced back. We battled in the second half and turned on the afterburners, beat them, and then we won a one-score game last week. So compared to what we've been doing over the last few years, I give it an A- for sure.
Love it, Geoff. I'll go B plus as well. I think there's still more out there for this team to show. And like to Mitch's point, maybe not even in the win and loss column. You could play 4 really good quarters and lose to some of these teams left on the schedule. But I do really like, for the first time in a long time, I have the belief that Matt Rule will fix whatever ails the program, right? Like he's shown that they're going to attack whatever problem areas they are. So, like Mitch referenced, they're going to do whatever they can to get special teams back on track during this bye week. And maybe it won't happen until the offseason, but they're going to turn over every rock that they can to address the issues that have been plaguing them. So I'd like to see penalties go down in the second half of the season. I'd like to see special teams improve in the second half of the season, but they have improved in so many ways. And again, pretty thrilled to be 1 win away from a bowl game. And so I'm going to go with the B plus as Geoff swats away his cat from the thing.
It's been a while since she's come around during a podcast.
Get out of here, Trixie.
Get the hell out of here.
All right, guys, let's do, if you guys are all right with it. Mitch, I hope I'm not stealing thunder from any writing you're going to be doing, but I'd love to do some second half game.
You can always repeat things.
Yeah. Okay. I'd love to do some second half game predictions and see where everybody lands. And we can try to tick through this here, but let's start with the big one. Who could have thought at Indiana, one of the biggest games of the year? It's important for so many reasons. Mitch, start us off. What do you think?
Oh, you want me to predict an outcome for
Yes.
Nebraska, Indiana at this point? So here's why predictions are so bad. They're so bad. Like, it's easy to predict a record and say like, oh, I think a team's going to go 8-4. And sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here a little bit, but Nebraska's record over the last 7 years, I don't have it in front of me, but you guys know what the record is. It's not good. It's like so you play 12 games a year times 7, 84 games, minus the 4 in the COVID year. They played 80 games in the last 7 years coming into this year, and they've won like 29 or so, I think it's something like that. If you go back and you look at the people like me who get put in these positions to pick the outcome of games, the week of the game, what do you think out of 50, if it's 51 losses, if that's right, how many of those games do you think that the media consensus picked Nebraska to lose out of 51? And it's a rhetorical question. The answer is like 15 or 20. It's been so bad. It's so hard to just watch a team, especially a team that you cover, when they play all of these games that are close, expected to be close, and just think, oh, I think they're going to lose. Like it's my nature to go, all right, I'll pick them against Indiana, but like, you know what? I'm not gonna. Like, I'm gonna just like try to be very realistic about this and say, I think they're gonna lose to Indiana. So there you go. That's
all right.
Not what people want to think and not what people want to hear, but that's
I think we love getting the inside,
cut his mic off, TJ.
Makes perfect
cut him off.
makes perfect sense. All right, Matteo, what do you think? Indiana.
I think the Huskers win in a close one. I think the black shirts figure out a way to stop Indiana's offense, their high-powered Kurt Cignetti offense, just enough to get us over the edge. Evan Bland said first team to 30 probably wins that game, and I think we were the first ones to 30 and we win that game.
Love it. Geoff?
We're going bowling, baby. It's happening after that game. We're going bowling.
Love it. I'm going to go W as well. I will fully admit I might be going more with my heart than my head on this one.
No,
I think it's possible that Indiana is very good, but they also it's hard to know for sure because their schedule's been pretty soft and pretty weak. And so there's part of me that wants to believe it's going to be different because it's not at home, but that the defense can just suffocate them like we did to Colorado. And, like maybe we don't need to get to 30, but I'm going to go with the W also because as we talked about on our last episode with Evan, like what that would do. Like, let's say you beat Indiana, you lose to Ohio State, and you're 6, and then you feel pretty good about UCLA. Imagine being 7-2 going into those last 3 games. I mean, everything is on the table, and those are 3 coin flip games, but they're not automatic losses for sure. And so part of me just wants to believe that is possible and what's going to happen. I'm gonna
It's there. Yeah, it's there for Nebraska because Nebraska can win the Indiana game and Nebraska should win the UCLA game. Like, it's there for them to be 7-2, and USC is not a slam dunk loss. Like, it's a tougher game than Indiana, I think, but it's not a slam dunk loss. Like 10-2, and look. This is a team that's got to look. They've got to look.
Go with it, Mitch.
So much different than they have at times, many times in the first half. But like that's on the playoff committee's mind. Like you probably not Nebraska 10 and taking a Nebraska 10-2, but I don't know. I wouldn't completely write it off. I just want to say this about the prediction that I made, and I haven't like predicted a score or anything like that. But if you want to like put that out there. If you like, please put it into context that I think there's a real possibility also that Indiana is going to have one of those first year moments in this game. It hasn't happened. Indiana's been blowing everybody out. And at some point they are going to lay an egg. Like we've heard Matt Rule talk so many times over the first 18 games about the process of growing as a team, and it's different for every program. And Nebraska had a lot of learning to win that it had to do. Well, shouldn't Indiana too? It was 4-8 last year. It had to fire a coach, and it's a whole new cast of players and coaches. But Nebraska had a whole new cast of players and coaches last year. So, while I can definitely see Indiana winning this because of the momentum that it's riding, and like that moment for Indiana is so huge, but it might be too big. It might be too big for Indiana next Saturday, having big noon kickoff. We're going to find out. Are they ready? Is Indiana ready for the real pressure? Like they're not the hunter, as Matt Rule mentioned at one time early this year. They're going to be the hunted in this game, and I don't know how they're going to handle it.
Yeah. And while I'd love to see the Huskers play a complete game and just win because they're the better team, how many times in the last 7 years has some downtrodden team played their best game of a decade against us? Like, so can we just get some of that luck if they just want to like start tripping all over their shoelaces for 4 quarters and play their worst game of the year, and that's how we win? I'd be totally fine with that.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, this one might be quick. Ohio State.
Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to pick every game.
Yeah.
I got no qualifiers. I got no context needed. Nothing. Nebraska's not winning that game.
Matteo?
Yeah, let's make it quick. I'm going to say it's a loss.
Quick and painful. Geoff?
Yeah.
Geoff's been out there on this one.
The only reason, I bet, Mitch, you're going to be ashamed of me, but I backed myself into a corner by predicting a win on this game, like way back in May.
January.
January.
I feel obligated. I just have to stick with it now. I can't change my mind. Now, there's reasons I have that have come to fruition within the last week that make it more of a reality. But no, if we want to keep it quick, we're going to pull that game off.
Love it, Geoff. Love it. UCLA, Mitch.
A win. Absolutely. Definitely a win. Easiest game left on Nebraska's schedule.
Definitely. And it's at home.
Agree 100%. They're a dumpster fire right now at UCLA. So yeah, we're gonna win that one.
Geoff?
Same.
Great. W. I've got it as a W. So Geoff's got us starting the second half 3-0. Just so you know, Jeff.
Watch out.
Look at this guy.
I feel like you're
look out 11-1.
Yeah, that's right. You're usually the most pessimistic one on here, Jeff. All right, then it gets really interesting. The final 3 games of the season at USC, Wisconsin at home, and of course at Iowa Thanksgiving weekend. Mitch, what happens in LA on November 16th?
I'll go USC in that game. I think talent will win out. Talent will prevail. USC it's interesting because of the introduction that USC has had to the Big Ten, and the schedule makers, I think, really kind of dug in on USC and said, okay, go to Michigan, and then you can come home and play Wisconsin. Well, Wisconsin wasn't normal Wisconsin. And then go to Minnesota. How about that? And you get to come home again. Now play Penn State. Like these guys could be pretty mentally and physically worn down by the time November gets here. The thing that's tough though for Nebraska is that USC's got a bye week ahead of that game, and it's at home.
Yeah.
So I think whatever USC has left in the tank at that point on November 16th, it's going to come out against Nebraska, and yeah, I don't think Nebraska's ready for that yet.
Yeah. Matteo.
Yeah, I think so too. I think just knowing, okay, it's two helmet programs or helmet teams, like some call them, just easily identifiable, right? You turn on the TV, it's like, oh, it's Nebraska and USC. Probably a night game in LA. Like if this game was in Lincoln,
Night game. Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. But no, I think that the lights will be a little bit bright, and see some nerves kind of creep in for the Huskers, particularly on the offense. So it kills me to say it, but I think USC takes that one in a close one.
Geoff.
I grew up in a Notre Dame household. I hate USC. Nebraska's winning that one too. Boom.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it, Geoff.
Irrational. I'm completely irrational.
I feel like I've got to have some. I genuinely believe we can win any of these games that are left, other than Ohio State. But I feel like I've got to keep some semblance of realism here. I'm going to go with a loss here. I believe that, like Mitch said, I believe that USC is going to be a little beat up. I believe we can go in there and win that game.
Mhm.
But I think the other thing that we've talked about when we've done schedule predictions before too is like, I don't think the Huskers are in a place yet where you can assume they won't like stub their toe or
Right.
I don't think we're in a place yet where you can just assume they're going to win a bunch of games in a row, even though the general trajectory is in the right direction. All right, Mitch, Wisconsin at home. The Badgers have looked not like the Badgers of old, but they did just recently beat up on Purdue and are maybe turning a quarter. What do you think about Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think it's a win for Nebraska. Coming back home, senior day in Lincoln. What a senior class Nebraska has.
No kidding.
This is going to be one of the more emotional and memorable senior days in recent history. Some of them, like because of the transfer portal in recent years, when you get to the last game of the season for seniors, it's become a little bit depressing or anticlimactic. There hasn't been a ton of star power left in the program at that point, among the older class. Not this time. Fifth year seniors, sixth year seniors. That's one thing that Matt Rule has changed is the want to for players to stick around and see things through. So they're going to ride that momentum. They're going to ride that energy. I mean, if it's as I predicted, and you're coming off 3 losses in 4 games, they're going to really be motivated to finish strong. And I think Nebraska will play one of its best games of the year on November 23rd and beat Wisconsin for the first time in a long time. It's is it
2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
30 to 27 in Lincoln. And then later that year saw them again in the Big Ten championship game, and everybody knows what happened there.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that.
Matteo.
I think we beat the Badgers. Kind of get rid of that streak, at least for the time being. And Mitch pretty much explained it all and said it all right there. So going a W against Wisconsin.
Love it. Geoff?
Same. I didn't realize it was senior day either, so that pushes it even farther up the win category.
Geoff's got us
Dominate
five straight wins on Geoff's punch card here. Mitch, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah. Hey, did you guys? I just looked and I feel even better about this pick because Wisconsin in the 3 games before Nebraska has Penn State, at Iowa, and then Oregon. So talk about a team that's being now. There's a buy in there before the Oregon game, but maybe more emotionally beat up than physically beat up. The Badgers have already had some low lows this year. Playing Bama and out at USC. So, much like Nebraska in several of the recent Wisconsin-Nebraska matchups where you've had to really kind of dig down and wonder what Nebraska was playing for, you may see the Badgers in that spot coming to Lincoln.
Yeah.
Boy, that would be great. I'm going to go a W. Part of the reason I picked USC as a loss because I knew what I wanted to do with the last 2 games. And I figured there had to be some losses in there, but I'm definitely going to go a W as well. We've got to get the Badger off of our back, so to speak. We've got to beat these guys and start flipping the script on Wisconsin. And there, as you guys all laid out, there's lots of reasons why that's more likely than ever. So let's finally make it happen this season.
Yes.
All right. Ending the season at Iowa. Certainly, hopefully, we're bowl eligible and perhaps well past bowl eligible by the time we roll into Iowa City. It's a night game this year. So everyone's going to be, maybe they got the smoker going. Maybe they're heating up some Thanksgiving leftovers. Like everyone, like this is going to be like just one of those, like it's going to be cold outside. It's just going to be like perfect football day. Mitch, what do you got?
It is. I mean, it could be an awful football day if it's 2 degrees.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if you're in Iowa City, it might be a different story.
The wind blowing 35 miles an hour, wind chill below zero. It's gonna be like an NFL playoff game, right. And that's the feel that it's gonna have. Like, this is gonna be a day for defense. I got Nebraska. I think Nebraska has a better defense than Iowa this year.
Yes.
And that's maybe a controversial statement, or maybe Nebraska has a better defense when you consider what Nebraska can do with its offense. Iowa is not going to move the ball well on that Black Friday 6:30 p.m. kickoff. One thing about Iowa that I will say, and this kind of is the opposite of what I mentioned about Wisconsin. When you look at Wisconsin's schedule leading into the Nebraska game, Iowa's second half schedule. So we just ranked on the Athletic all of the schedules for the Big Ten teams from here on out. For some teams, it's 6 games. For some teams, it's 7 games. Iowa, in our view, has the easiest remaining schedule in the Big Ten. So,
Shocker.
And they just played Ohio State. So, like, some of this has to do with when you do the rankings. That may not have been that if you said it a week ago because they had to go to Ohio State. Washington this week is not an easy game, but then it's Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin, UCLA, Maryland, Nebraska. So there's not a ranked team on that list, and Iowa's record's probably going to look pretty good despite being 3-2 right now. So that's not going to be a game where you wonder what's this team playing for on either side, in my opinion. But I think Nebraska will win for a second consecutive trip to Iowa City.
Love it, Matteo.
I think the Huskers get it done too. I think the defenses cancel each other out, and then you're kind of left with, okay, who's got the more explosive playmakers on offense? And I think it's pretty obvious that Nebraska has the edge there with Dylan, and then the guys making plays on the perimeter, and I think the Huskers go into Kinnick and take care of business.
You've changed your tune. Didn't you pick this in a loss in our previous?
A lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed. There's so much that's changed in the last 6 months, TJ.
That's right. All right, Geoff, what do you got?
Well, you can't win them all, guys. And how Nebraska of us would it be if we went on a run like that? Couldn't you just see it if we went on a run like I just predicted and then somehow just completely crap the bet against Iowa? I feel like that's something that is a very real possibility. So I'm going to go with a loss on this one. We're going to lose the last game of the season, and then us as Husker fans at 10-2 are going to be stressing about whether or not we're going to make the playoff or not. That's just the way I could see everything playing out.
That's a hell of a good problem to have, Jeff.
That's right. I think
but I could see that being a scenario where we're freaking out about whether or not we're going to get in or not.
You could present a lot of different trade-offs where Husker fans would choose beating Iowa over a lot of things.
Sure.
But I think if it was running off 5 straight to get to 10
beating
wins,
Ohio State,
including beating Ohio State, I could sleep well after losing to Iowa after all of that. So love
That's
it.
how we get to 10-2.
Love it. I'm gonna go W. Just because I can never pick us to lose to Iowa, even though that one always we know it's going to be a coin flip. It doesn't matter how good or bad either team is. We know it's going to be a dogfight, and who knows what the hell is going to happen. But I'm going to pick it as a W. So
wouldn't that be incredible if Nebraska won on some bullshit special teams touchdown or something? Just do it, just to rub it in Iowa's face a little bit more, like all the ridiculous ways they've beat Nebraska over the last 7 years.
A touchdown pass from Boom Sheeny. That would be
Love it.
incredible.
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
He's got another one in him. He's got another pass. He didn't
definitely.
get. He
It was
didn't
a
get his
beautiful
touchdown,
pass
so,
he threw the other day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Jalen Lloyd had one guy to beat, it looked like.
Yeah.
So could have gotten in the end zone. All right. So Mitch, you've got us ending at 8-4. Matty O, you've got us at 9-3. Geoff, of all people, has us ending 10-2, and I've got us at 9-3 as well. I think Husker fans would take honestly any of those outcomes.
Yeah,
I
as
think
we should.
I think 6 wins at this point for Husker fans would be a disappointment. I think 7-5 is kind of the over-under mark of like about half the fan base is happy and feels like we're trending in the right direction, and half the fan base is just pissed. And then I think 8-4 are better, and people are pretty happy. So
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment.
all 4 of us have the Husker fan base being happy. All right, Mitch. Man, this was awesome. Thank you so much for joining the Common Fans again. You guys have anything else for Mitch? Or Mitch, you have anything for us?
Sorry about my lighting. Like I feel like I look like General Zod in the Phantom Zone and Superman 2.
You look like a villain
terrible.
in an 80s movie. Yeah.
I thought one time like the room was crashing down on you or something to that effect. It
got
just
bright
the
for a
cat. It was the
second.
cat. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's just Dottie.
Well, Mitch, I hope you enjoy having a little bit of a break here, or at least get your chores done before Nebraska's back at it. You can find all of his great work at The Athletic. Get subscribed if you're not yet, Common Fans, and also check out the Locked On Nebraska podcast, which is just fantastic, and make it a part of your daily routine. Any final thoughts, boys?
Go Big Red.
Yeah, GBR for life.
GBR for life. Check out the website, commonfan.co. Use the promo code commonfan at cpbeef.com. Find us on Twitter. Find us on Facebook. Find us in person at the tailgate in Lot 10 at the UCLA game. More information will be forthcoming, but trying to keep that out on everybody's radar. Thanks so much to Mitch Sherman for joining us. Pleasure as always. In the meantime, Common Fans, GBR for life.